so delighted that you want me to be on your board, for example, right? However, these things in my life are more important and are requiring more of my time and energy and passion. So thank you, but no, right? That's the grace part.
Yeah.
Right? Thank you, but no.
You know what's interesting?
Check back with me in a year, right? Or
yeah, what's interesting about that perspective too, I think what goes along with having the ability to say no is also to have your own goals and direction personally. And I would presume that you do some work with people on generating their own goals and objectives in life. I know I do a lot of work on that with others because I think it's so important. And I think it's easier to say no when you can align your yeses with your goals and objectives. And as you mentioned, maybe somebody wants you to sit on the board, and maybe that's a nice compliment. But if it doesn't align with the time allocation you've given yourself for your goals and objectives, then it should help make that a no. And I've found with that alignment, I'm much more able to make decisions as things come my way because I know exactly where I want to be, right?
Yeah, it's also, those values and goals that you set for yourself also about, work-life balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How much time do you want to spend doing the work you do, and how much time do you want to spend in the rest of your life, right? And for some people, they're very different. For others, it is all part of the mix. We can't separate ourselves from our work. We think, oh, I'm going to do my job, I'm going to clock out, and I'm going to go home, and I'm going to leave it at work. And there is that, but what I found in my 18 years of work, Jim, is that, people's identity, their self-worth comes in large parts, not wholly and completely, but large portions of that come from the work we do in the world. How are we able to be of service? And oftentimes people are unhappy, discontent, dissatisfied with their lives because their work isn't feeding their soul in some way, shape, or form, right? That's another thing that I've learned is when your work is not in alignment with those core values that are so important to you, they're like water and air to you, that's where that dis-ease, that dissatisfaction shows up that can very easily lead to disease, to health issues, to physical, mental, emotional challenges. And so back to, earlier part of the discussion, the more you can work on yourself, work on your brain and finding that alignment of your heart, mind, and spirit, where your talents, your expertise, your passions, your values all come into alignment with the work that you do in the world. That's the sweet spots that we're all looking for in life, right?
Yeah.
And it's challenging, to find it sometimes, but once you do, then work is no longer work. It's just, this is the joy that I get to do, the way I get to be of contribution. And, oh, yeah, I get paid to do it as well. That's pretty cool.
One of my morning routines for myself is the process of writing down all the things that I have more than enough of. And I talk about that on this show because I think most of us are far more blessed than we give ourselves credit for, especially if you start looking at and writing down the things that you have more than enough of. You have a topic in your notes here on being enough. And I think that's also important to understand about being enough. And in some of my coaching work, oftentimes people come to me like, I just don't feel like I can contribute, or I'm this or that. And they're really down on that. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your teachings on being enough.
Yeah, well, back to those beliefs that we picked up along the way as kids, as children, as young adults, as adults, right? Someone says something to you in passing, right? It might have been a teacher, it might have been a classmate, who knows, but it dropped into your subconscious. and you took it on. You're like, oh, okay, that must be true. John, Mary, Fred, whoever said that about me, it must be true. And so then we start walking around through the world of, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not something enough. I'm different. Love, success, family, whatever. It's not available to me. We have these different ideas that get instilled in our system. And the truth of the matter is that you absolutely are enough. You always have been enough. You always will be enough. There is nothing that can ever change that, because only you decide that you're enough, right? You might go and interview for a job and they tell you, no, you didn't make the grade. It doesn't mean you're not enough. It just means you didn't fit the criteria of what they were looking for. And if we take it one step further, energetically, it wasn't a match, right? Mm-hmm. Their vibration and your vibration weren't in the same place. And when the vibrational frequency is too far apart, it's not a match, right? So one or the other is going to go away, right? It was a piece of wisdom I got after I got divorced. I was like, oh, that makes so much sense, right? And so when you can remind yourself that you are enough, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. It creates a subtle yet powerful shift for people. And then the lens that they see the world shifts and opens up. The filters, the film comes off, and they're able to see things with greater clarity, with greater joy, because they're more grounded in who they actually are versus the story they've been telling themselves. Mm-hmm. Right? I always tell folks that this work that I do with clients is about not changing your history, but eliminating the story about it. Because your history is your history. You've done what you've done, you've gotten what you've gotten in your life. But it's how you hold on to the emotional charge of that creates the, quote, story around it. And so I could say, wow, the sky is blue today. But based on your life experience, you might go, no, the sky is green today. Oh, my God, it's horrible, right? But when you eliminate the emotional charge that created that response, then you're like, oh, okay, the sky is blue and it has a green tint to it, but that it really means nothing here or there, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of what you just talked about really resonates for salespeople and could be a very valuable tool for salespeople. I've been in the alcohol business for so long. I've had a number of salespeople working for me. And was just talking to somebody earlier today about how many times they've had to call on a certain account. And as you suggested, maybe, it's not you. You got to realize that you have your own agenda and your own vibration, and they have their own agenda and vibration that day. And maybe it's just mixed matched on your day the first time you go in, maybe the second time, but maybe the third time you're in perfect alignment and you make the sale. But you can't blame yourself for that. If you're being true and honest to what you're doing and your product and yourself, it just could be misaligned. And I think it's important to understand that we are enough and we can be enough and not be taken down by the nose.
Yes, exactly. When we get caught in that spin, that negative self-talk that starts to pull you down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
If you can come back to yourself with, okay, you're reflecting back on an issue and you're not happy with how you handled it or what happened. Did you do your very best that you knew how to do in that particular moment? Yes. Okay. Well, then I did the very best I knew how to do in that moment. And I can learn from that situation and move forward, right? But beating yourself up and getting sad or depressed about what happened in the past doesn't really serve you. It doesn't serve the world, right? So you can look at those situations and go, Okay, that was challenging. It was hard. It was painful. I did the very best I knew how to do in that moment because that's all I knew how to do in that moment. And so now I know something new or something different, or I have more data points. So if I had to do it again, I could do it differently.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's keeping ourselves from getting caught in the downward spiral that sucks you down into the pit.
Michele, do you have a daily routine that keeps you in this state of positive and that vibration that we talked about? Is there something that you do every day that keeps you in that state that you can share with people?
And there's a couple of things. So I try to start my day with listening to positive, motivational, inspirational things. So like one of my favorites is they have a variety of different kind of meditation series that Oprah and Deepak Chopra have done together, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love them. They're short. They're like 15 minutes long. It just lifts my spirit and my soul and gives me that positive perspective. Here at my desk at world headquarters of Nectar Consulting in my house, I have a hummingbird feeder that hangs right outside my window. And the hummers come and flit and back and forth constantly all day long. And hummingbirds are all about tireless joy in the animal medicine tradition. And so just watching them, literally, even as we're sitting here talking, they come and they go and they chitter and they chase each other. It always makes me smile. And it's just those little things, right, that bring a smile to your face, that raises your vibration, that allows you to see all the possibilities that are there for you and, keeps you from getting too caught up in the whatever head noise that might try to bring you down. Because, it happens to all of us, even me. Sure. But I have a self-instilled coach, Jim. I don't know about you, but I got a coach in there like, recover. Okay. Recover. Got it. Yeah. Or my other one is raise your vibration. Okay.
It's because I think any of us could get caught up in these little traps that we run into in life. I know, for example, I love what you said about listening to something positive in the morning, and you have a particular thing that you listen to specifically. I found myself a couple years ago listening and watching way too much news, and I realized it was getting me down. It was
news diet.
It was getting me down, and I made a conscious decision to cut the news out of my life, and I immediately felt better. And I don't care what channel you watch or what channel you listen to on the news, it can bring you down. And I just realized at that time, even as a grown adult, how much influence what we listen to and hear has over our mind, body, and soul and how we feel. So I cut out the news for the most part, put myself on a diet, and I try to only put good things into my head. I try to watch positive TV if I watch TV or uplifting music and things like that. It's really made a difference for me. So I'm glad to hear that that's part of your routine in the morning to listen to something positive.
Yeah. I don't watch, I work for myself. I work from home. I don't watch any TV during the day at all, period. And, TV is my way of turning my brain off because, as a business owner, there's always a list of things to do, right?
Yeah.
And so it's I guess one of my vices of turning off the business noise in my head. But yeah, listening to positive, inspiring things, or, even as I said, there are those times where my biorhythm drops at about 2:30 in the afternoon. And so sometimes, it's time for a hypno nap. So I pop in one of my own recordings and listen to that for 30 minutes, and that rejuvenates me, and I get back up and I get back at whatever it is that I'm doing that day.
I love that. Well, I don't want you to give away all your secrets on the show today. I think you've added a tremendous amount of value to what we're putting out and to our listeners, and I'm really appreciative of your time. Is